Hello there and welcome to the 8-man hard mode Annihilation Droid boss fight guide. My name's Hayete, and for this video we'll be getting you up to speed with everything you need to know to handle this fight. This is the first fight in the Eternity Vault operation, and it's a pretty straightforward fight. You'll want to bring a standard composition of 2 tanks, 4 DPS, and 2 healers. This fight, however, can be solo tanked, so if you need the extra DPS, you can have one of your tanks change specs, or just bring a DPS if they're capable. So for DPS requirements, let's evaluate some information. The total health of the boss comes in at a whopping 7,974 HP, with an enraged time of 6 minutes and 5 seconds. Since your tanks and healers should be capable of putting out some good damage during this encounter, we'll take off 15% of the total health to account for that damage, which then gives us a new health total of 5,950,828. Doing some math with the enraged time, we can find our total DPS requirement, which comes out to 16,304 DPS. If we divide this number by the total number of DPS available, so for this example we'll use the standard 4 DPS composite, this gives us an individual DPS requirement of 4,076 DPS. An even better assessment, however, is how much total damage each DPS needs to do. So by multiplying the enraged time into this figure, that will give us a total of 1,487,740 damage per player. This is the number you'll want to push your DPS to. Keep in mind, however, that this is the requirement to beat the fight at the bare minimum, so realistically your DPS should be and probably will be higher than this. So on to mechanics. There are 5 major mechanics to be aware of for this encounter. The first is Overwhelming Swipe. This ability is a conal attack and is generally aimed away from the group by the tank. If you get hit by this ability, you'll be knocked back by 40 meters. It's not a big deal, you just come back to the boss. If you're tanking this encounter, all you need to do is make sure that you keep this away from the group so that you don't knock your raid members around. Shockwave is the second ability, and this ability stuns all members within range of the boss for a few seconds. It is a channeled ability, so you'll see it coming. However, immediately after this ability goes out, the boss will follow up with a 360-degree version of Overwhelming Swipe, which will knock back all the raid members. If you're playing a melee DPS, a good trick here is to start smashing your leap ability, or whatever you have that can cover the distance quickly back to the target. If you do this properly, what will happen is as you get knocked back, you'll immediately jump back to the boss, and that'll increase your DPS uptime, so you don't lose any damage. If you happen to be a ranged class and you have anything that can prevent you from getting knocked around, what you can then do is you can pop that as the channel for the shockwave is happening, and that should mitigate that so that you don't get knocked back. However, just realize if you do get knocked back, you're going to have to come back in range to continue DPSing. Alright, so Missile Salvo is next, and it's one of 2 raid-wide attacks that you'll have to deal with that propagate through the field in this encounter. There is a distinct audible cue for this mechanic that sounds like this.
I have been armed with 24 distinct weapons technologies.
Any mechanic causes the need for defensive cooldowns, it's definitely this one. So just be aware of that. Ground Fire is the next mechanic and is the second raid-wide that persists throughout the fight. There is a distinct audible cue for this mechanic as well.
Tactics analyzed. Engaging storm protocols.
This will place red circles on the ground that will be met by a missile impact shortly after it appears. So Rocket Burst is the last major mechanic. This is a random RNG-based mechanic that will choose a player at certain points throughout the fight. The player will gain a red targeting reticle animation on their character that slowly grows in size. At its apex, the boss will launch a missile at that selected target, and it does quite a bit of damage, knocking you down. So if you have a personal defensive or if you have a way to mitigate this, definitely go ahead and employ that. If anything, it'll just help your healers out. As a Sentinel Marauder, a good example of this is you can force camouflage here, and what that'll do is that'll reduce the damage you take by 50%, and it'll also keep you from getting knocked down. So it's a win-win all the way around. But if you have anything that you can use to mitigate that, I would highly suggest that you do that. Now, it can be really difficult to kind of see that if you're grouped up on top of people. So what I suggest is that don't group up right on top of other players. You can stand close to them, but stand a little bit away so that if you get that, it's identifiable. Okay, so now that you guys know what mechanics you'll be facing, let's go ahead and talk about strategy. So since the boss does not physically move, you'll want to fix your group in specific locations. You'll want to assign your main tank basically here and at this specific angle. This will allow your tank to be knocked into the wall, which reduces the run back time. Most of the time, once you reach this point, you get knocked back. You can just leap back in. Every tank has a leap now, so you guys can just leap back in and continue doing your tanking thing. As a DPS, you'll always want to maintain a position behind the boss. So for melee DPS, you'll want to be about here. And for ranged DPS and healers, you'll want to be spread out through about this arc. As long as you maintain a position behind this mark, you'll be safe from potentially being knocked back by overwhelming swipe. You'll hold this configuration until missile salvo happens. On the audible cue for missile salvo, you'll want to stack your entire group roughly here. And what this does is it'll help your healers keep everyone at full health through AoE heals. As the mechanic ends, you'll want to reposition back out to your original spots and then keep going with the fight. Whenever ground fire happens, it's pretty simple. You're just basically going to keep your feet moving and don't be in the red circles. The one thing I want you guys to understand here is that the hitbox on those red circles can be a little bit deceptive, so make sure that you get an extra step or two away before you stop moving, because I've had it at times where I'm right outside of it and I still take damage. So make sure that you're far enough away from it, but you don't need to be too far. For rocket bursts, you'll simply want to just move away from the group a lot for at least 5 meters of clearance around yourself when it detonates, and you should be good to go for that mechanic. So that's pretty much it, guys. Watch your positioning, stack for missiles, don't stand in red circles, and move away if you're targeted for rocket bursts. If this video helped you guys, please drop us a like and subscribe. It definitely helps us out and keeps us motivated. So until next time, take care and enjoy the full fight video. I'll see you guys later.
Unauthorized life forms detected. Proximity violation. I have been armed with 24 distinct weapons technologies. Proximity violation. Proximity violation. I have been armed with 24 distinct weapons technologies. Enemy tactics analyzed. Engaging storm protocols. Proximity violation. I have been armed with 24 distinct weapons technologies. Warning. System failing.
Yeah.